welcome. We are live for day 2 of the chicken rescue trial of Zoe Rosenberg happening in Northern California. We have a team of experts, as you can see. In fact, we're honored to have a member of the defense team with us today. And we're going to go out to the courthouse where Johnny Mora in the cap is standing by with a previous defendant in a previous case, hopefully, who's going to join him any moment, and that's former Baywatch actress Alexandra Paul. So stand by for that. But first, as we are live, I want to get the latest to you. Zoe Rosenberg was forced to wear an ankle monitor for 20 months. That is the defendant. She just got it removed. Let's hear from her what that was like, having to walk around with an ankle monitor for 20 months for rescuing 4 chickens from a slaughter.
I've had my ankle monitor for over a year now. I got it in December of 2023. It's been an interesting experience. It's definitely been challenging in ways I wasn't expecting. I was mostly worried when I first got it that it was going to be physically uncomfortable. What I wasn't really expecting was like any sort of mental issues that might come from it. But it really has been mentally taxing in ways I didn't expect. And that's the point of it in so many ways. Ankle monitors are supposed to be a psychological tool to make people feel ashamed of themselves and to create, awkward social interactions and make people feel embarrassed when they're out in public. Sometimes I wonder, what do people think I did when they see that I'm wearing an ankle monitor? But it's also, I think, been an opportunity in a lot of ways to highlight the power of these institutions, the power of animal agriculture, that I'm even in this situation, that after rescuing 4 chickens, I could be forced to wear an ankle monitor for over a year. I think just shows the scale of this corrupt institution in a really powerful way. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity that it's presented in that way.
I have been wearing an ankle monitor for exactly 1 year as of today.
It's also, for me, a personal reminder of everything that's happening in Sonoma County, which is where I'm being prosecuted, and why this fight is so important.
So the great news, her ankle monitor is off. I want to go out to Paige Parsons-Roach with Animal Alliance, Animal Save Movement. Paige, what's your reaction to that?
Well, you know what? Here she is, a citizen wanting to give public information about what's happening with chickens who are dying in trucks. And now she's free from that ankle monitor, and yet she's in court fighting for her safety and her freedom for giving public information and saving animals. I just saw a billboard from the Ad Council and National Highway Traffic Safety that says in 60-degree Fahrenheit, they're educating a hot car causes deaths. Think about that. These animals are in these hot cars. Back to you, Jane.
Wow, that's a very good point, Paige Parsons-Roach. Now, we have Stephen Seitz, who is with the defense team. I got to tell you, there were a lot of things that happened in court yesterday, day 1. And one of them I'd like you to explain, because, yes, it was a victory that Zoe got her ankle monitor off, but apparently she lost on something called the Slaughterhouse condemnation records. There was a motion to quash an effort to introduce or somehow get these slaughterhouse condemnation records into the trial. What happened, Stefan?
Yeah, so essentially the goal is to get certain documents from this slaughterhouse into the trial because they give us information about what's happening to the birds at the slaughterhouse. And they've also been relied on by experts who reviewed these to reach certain conclusions. And one of the sets of records that we're trying to introduce are these condemnations.
Go ahead.
Was I muted? Should I start from the beginning?
No, continue.
Sorry. So some of these records are these condemnation records, which are essentially records of that show that a high number of birds are being condemned. That is to say that there's various issues, and as a result, they're not entering the food supply. And it often is an indicator of things like disease and other concerns at the slaughterhouse. And one of the activists, one of the investigators, Raven Deerbrook, when she went in, she actually saw a lot of these condemnation records and she took pictures of them. And those are one of the things that informed both her investigation and Zoe's investigation. And the problem is that the court has been reluctant to let those records in because they were obtained while she was in the facility without permission. And so one of the ways we've tried to solve that is by essentially subpoenaing Perdue and saying, hey, you have these records. Maybe we can't, admit the records that Raven took pictures of, but we'd like you to send us the original records. So they were, these are records that are correctly authenticated, which is to say these are the records that the company is actually producing and using. And so that's what that subpoena is for. Unfortunately, the court granted a motion to quash from Perdue, which basically means that Perdue no longer has to comply with that subpoena. They don't have to send over those records. The silver lining is I don't think that ends the conversation. I think there's still lots of legal arguments and reasons why the original records, the pictures that Raven took, should be admissible. And so that's something that will probably be litigated at a later point.
Well, that's very interesting because as far as I'm concerned, that is a very key record, because Zoe is saying that the birds that she took out of the facility were very sick. So they wouldn't have gone in her contention, to the food chain because they would be condemned. And what she's trying to show is that a huge percentage or a large number of these animals that go through this factory farming system end up being condemned. So Justine Block, as an attorney, what are your thoughts on the fact that now, at this point anyway, the record showing the levels of condemnation or the percentage of condemnation or whatever about condemnation of chickens at that facility is not going to be introduced into the trial?
Well, I should say off the bat, I'm not a criminal defense attorney. My background is in government law and public policy and animal rights law, from a policy and government law perspective. I have been watching the information coming out of the trial about the judge's decisions, and it's wonderful having someone from the defense team here. I would be interested in learning more about the judge's reasoning. Is it because it relates to evidence of cruelty that is not being allowed? I had, second point is additionally heard on the good side is that veterinary records would be allowed potentially, and evidence about the rescued chickens as to their health. So I'm interested to hear more about that.
Okay, if we could go back to Stefan and what she wants to get more background on. I mean, records showing the condemnation levels, and here is Zoe. This is video from Direct Action Everywhere of Zoe doing the actual crime for which she is charged, the alleged crime, which is rescuing chickens from this slaughter truck inside the Petaluma poultry facility. These animals would all be killed, either killed to go through the food chain or killed and condemned as being too sick to go into the food chain. So can you answer those questions in basic English, Stefan?
Yeah, so there's a variety of pieces of evidence that we can use to show the condition of the birds at the slaughterhouse. The video that you're seeing here is one of those. You can see Zoe going through the birds and selecting birds who are in poor health. She's not sort of just like taking the entire cart and running. And then there's also footage that we can show to veterinarians, and we can get veterinarians to opine on what they're seeing here. So that's one, I think, extremely important bucket of evidence. But there's also evidence of things inside the slaughterhouse from investigations. And so I think that's where these records become important, because it goes to show that even under the company's own condemnation records, even under their own policies, the way that they're handling the chickens, they have high condemnation rates. And so that also becomes especially relevant, because obviously that's an extremely probative form of evidence when we can show that the company themselves has these condemnation rates. And part of the question is just sort of how we can get these records admitted. And I can sort of take a quick legal detour here, which is that whenever you admit any record in court, you have to do what's called authenticate the record. So someone has to say, this is the, if it's like, say, the gun from a crime scene, someone says, I picked this up there, I handed it to this evidence technician, they handed it to this other person. The gun that you see now in court is the one that we picked up from the crime scene. They can sort of tell that story to make sure that gun is what it claims to be. The same is true for anything that gets into a court of law. In this case, that includes these condemnation records. And the question is, Obviously, Raven, the investigator herself, did not produce these condemnation records. She's not one of the employees there, but she did find them at the slaughterhouse in a place you'd expect these records to be, and whether that would be enough to authenticate them, or do you have to have someone from Perdue who actually produced them?
But let me just say this, and maybe people can weigh in. Ellen Dent, why would there be such resistance? These are facts. This is the company's own records, allegedly. Why do you think there's such resistance to having this come into the trial, Ellen?
I believe they don't want the public to know. They don't want the public to see the truth of what happens in their facilities, even from their own records, not even necessarily the footage, which we know they would not want the public to see. The conditions that, Direct Action Everywhere has said that they've seen these birds in this footage that they've taken in this, so-called farm.
Well, I'm going to play a little bit of footage here from the Direct Action Everywhere provided of what they say is animals inside Petaluma Poultry. There's various facilities. It's a subsidiary of Perdue Poultry, arguably either the largest or one of the largest chicken producers in the United States. These are some of the images provided by Direct Action Everywhere. And we always say we invite the company on at any time. We've sought comment from them. We're going to play some comments from them. We would love to dialogue with them. These are some of the images that they're saying they videotaped inside a Petaluma poultry facility. So I want to go to Renee King-Sonnen, who is a former cattle rancher who now runs a vegan animal sanctuary in Texas. Renee, what are your thoughts as you look at these images and then find that there's a legal battle going on right now in court to try to keep the records that show how many of the birds were condemned? Correct me if I'm wrong, Stefan. How many of the birds were condemned versus being sold for food? What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been looking at the information that you recommended we view about this situation. And, as far as why would they want to block this? It's like if everything was clean and above board, transparency would not be a problem. This positions Perdue as, in my opinion, of being afraid of what the truth will actually expose. I really do think it's so important that these chickens, these obviously sick, disease, suffering chickens, they're horribly ill, injured, dying, and the defense wants these records because they show how horrific these conditions are inside of these so-called farms. They are institutionalized factory violence is what it is. And, we just need to encourage all of the viewers here on Unchained TV to follow the trial updates on Twitter, on X, and to share them widely because it's such a plethora of information. And it just goes to show you, we've got right now, there's a chicken that's one of the chickens just like those in that Perdue farm. Her name is Cotton, and she's about going on 4 years old right now. And I will send you a picture later, Jane. But, she's huge and she can hardly walk anymore. We know her days are numbered, but my gosh, she has lived a quality of life. And these birds deserve to live in quality, serene environment where they're not treated so terribly horrible.
All right. I'm going to say a couple of things because we're going to go out in a second to Johnny Mora, who's with somebody who's been inside the courtroom. But it's very important for me to say that you are invited to check out Purdue's animal welfare standards. There is a lot of information online. I urge everybody watching to do their own research. You can go to corporate.purduefarms.com/responsibility/animal/care. And the California Poultry Federation has said Petaluma Poultry has long been a leader in free range and organic poultry, and they're known for taking great care of their birds. And the company has released a statement that says that they have the highest standard of animal care, says these claims are fake, and says that this is being pushed by an extreme group, DXC, with the ultimate goal of ending animal agriculture altogether and imposing a radical agenda. So that's the other side of the story. And I always emphasize, we invite the other side, the company itself, on anytime. We would love to dialogue with you. All right, we're going to go straight out to the courthouse in Northern California. Let's go to Johnny Mora on the scene, and you're there with Curtis. Tell us what's going on, and what does Curtis have to say about what's happening inside, Johnny?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Jane. Johnny Mora here at the Superior Court of California, Santa Rosa. It is now the lunch session. Activists and volunteers from Direct Action Everywhere has poured out and enjoying a small break. But yeah, day two, we have here Curtis Volmar, who has some observations about what's happened in the courtroom. We are Curtis. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, hey, Jane. So I took a bunch of notes. I'll try to get through them as thoroughly as I can without going into, obviously, every little thing I wrote. But yeah, thanks for doing the live stream and getting the word out and having us on your show. So it was supposed to start at 11, started at 11:20. It seems like it's always late. Everything is always moving slow here. But the first thing that everybody went over was some motions in limine from yesterday from the defense's side, from Zoe's side. And it started off with the jury questionnaire. And the judge reminded both sides that he would like them to work together to get this jury questionnaire, to agree on the jury questionnaire. And it looks like they are almost done with it. But there was one question about Measure J, which the prosecutors did not like. And the question is, have you heard of Measure J and do you support it? And so for those of you that don't know, Measure J was this ballot initiative that took place here in Sonoma County, which presumably all of the jurors have heard about it, and most of them voted on it. It was the most contentious issue maybe ever in the history of the county with regards to ballot initiatives. So we're unsure what will happen with that, but both sides said that they'll probably come to some agreement, and the judge won't have to kind of use his own discretion to sort that whole thing out.
Measure J, just for those who don't know, Measure J was a recent measure that Direct Action Everywhere, which Zoe, the defendant, is a member of, was trying to get passed in Sonoma County, which would have phased out factory farming.
It wasn't DXC specifically. It was a whole collective of organizations that were,
Okay. Yeah, but basically it would have phased out factory farming. So they wanted, I guess they didn't want people who had a strong opinion either for or against on that issue.
Well, I would imagine they definitely don't want people that were strongly against Measure J on the jury. Sure, we'd love people that were strongly on our side on it, but the opposition or the other side would probably not want that either. Sounds like there's some demonstration or protest going on behind us right now, but they're walking away.
Wow. Well, that's exciting.
Union. Yeah. So then the next issue that came up was our side wanted to avoid narrative from witnesses about their opinion on Zoe or the group as to how that might confuse the jury and inform their decision. The defense wants a list of all the witnesses in order to kind of expedite the trial so that.
All right. Well, we lost you there for a second, but we got the general idea. Curtis, thank you. Thank you so much thanks for that update. First of all, I want to get reaction from people. I've been hearing that this trial could go on for weeks on end. I just cannot wrap my mind around this, Paige. This is 4 chickens, and according to Direct Action Everywhere, the defense, it's their total value is $24 if they were healthy. And so, what is your take on that?
Well, first of all, the facts are, according to Zoe, is that she saw some animals in duress, right? And from what I understand, she is the daughter of a veterinarian, and she has her own sanctuary where they help animals in all different conditions. So she is well aware of, having grown up around her mother, who's a veterinarian, of healthy animals. So here is a person who is doing a kind thing. Like if you and I saw, anyone out there saw a dog in duress, or any kind of an animal, let's say it was a goat that you saw what looked like it was going to die, and it was beyond, on a truck or something, right? We would want to do something. That is human nature. So the fact that we're spending tax dollars to go against someone whose human kindness was to reach out and help 4 chickens, quote unquote, worth $24 is beyond me. Back to you, Jane.
Excellent point. I want to play a little bit of what Zoe said yesterday outside court. This was day 1 of the trial, and she's a 23-year-old with the world's attention on her. There was mainstream media there. There were about 100 people there who are her supporters. And I got to tell you, it was a speech that gave a lot of people chills, brought some people to tears. But the big question, which I will get some answers from you guys on the other side, is, will she be able to give this speech on the witness stand in front of the jury?
As I stand here today, I do not know what lies ahead. I am just wrapping up as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley, and in many ways my life is just beginning. But my future feels incredibly uncertain. In a few weeks, I might be a convicted felon. I might be on house arrest. I might be in jail. I might be in jail being denied medical care that I need to survive, which is now even more concerning, as in the last couple of months, my stomach has become partially paralyzed, which is why I now have a feeding tube that runs from my nose into my small intestine. I do not know what lies ahead, but there is one thing that I do know for certain, and that is that for billions of animals, their futures are set in stone long before they are ever born. They are sentenced to die before they even breathe their first breaths. So what I am facing might be scary, but the consequences of our inaction are much, much scarier. For the animals, the cost of allowing the world to continue as it is simply far too great. I believe that the future of the animal rights movement depends on how we handle moments like this. And we must not hide. We must not cower in fear. We all have a part to play, and we must show Sonoma County law enforcement, Perdue, and the world that we will not be silenced. We will continue to take action for Poppy, Ivy, Aster, and Azalea, and every animal whose cries for help have gone unanswered.
So,
Man.
wow, that was emotional. But my question is, first of all, what ran through you hearing that, seeing that? Let's start with Ellen Dent.
I mean, my heart just, it breaks for her. I feel like, they're really making a spectacle of her and, isolating, this one case of animal rescue. And she's, obviously unwell. I can't imagine, what she's, going through herself, suffering in this way, and that she's, willing to go through this and bravely, face this trial, so that she can establish the right to rescue these poor individuals, from these trucks. And you can see that she took the time on that truck to like really look at the chickens that were pulled off of the truck and determine, that they were not well. So I think the public absolutely 100% needs to hear her. They need to see her, and they need to know, how brave she is.
By the way, you're seeing a video of some kind of demonstration. There's people having lunch outside, but they're also demonstrating. So, key question, Stefan Seitz with the defense team. How much of that is the jury ever going to hear?
Yeah, that's a good question, a very big question, and something that is still being resolved during the motions hearings today and possibly still later this week. My sense is that Zoe will be able to tell her story, the story of why she conducted this investigation, why she felt that these particular chickens needed to be rescued, why she rescued them, and then the help that she gave them. I don't think she'll be able to get into all the details. I don't think she'll be able to make the kind of emotional plea that we heard in that extremely moving speech just now. But I'm cautiously optimistic that she'll at least be able to tell her story and through herself, the story of the four birds.
So, but how far? I mean, when she says these very emotional things that really, gave people chills and made people tear up, give me a sense. Are they going to be objection, Your Honor? Objection, or are they going to let her tell her story? Because we've got another clip of her explaining, why she did what she did. And it's a very long and involved process where she says they did undercover investigations. They allege that they found these violations. They found these animals on their backs, unable to access water, dead on the ground, and they tried to report it to police. So it's not something that can be like this. It's really a long, long story of how she came to the point of going into that facility. Let's hear another little bit and talk about it on the other side.
Something has to be done. I'm going to try at least one more time. So I compiled all of my evidence of animal cruelty, all of my evidence of disease, and I reported it to several law enforcement agencies in Sonoma County and at the state level. All I received in response was a very dismissive email from the Sonoma County District Attorney's Office. And months later, a very bizarre email from the United States Department of Agriculture saying that animal cruelty and disease is apparently not their area of expertise. The animal services officers who were once my heroes did not even grace me with a response. I didn't know what else to do but to continue to rescue animals myself. And so on June 13th, 2023, I personally rescued 4 chickens. I entered the slaughterhouse partially disguised as a worker. I approached the back of a transport truck that had just parked behind the slaughterhouse gates. I opened up 2 of the crates. Chickens were packed together so tightly they couldn't even turn around. They couldn't even stand up. And I removed 4 chickens from those crates. They were covered in scratches, bruises, small wounds. They were infested with coccidia parasites. Poppy had an injured toe and a respiratory infection. Some of the other birds had infected feet. Their feet were filled with pus. I got them veterinary care and I shared their stories with the world, asking the public to join me in calling on the authorities to finally do something to address this horrific misconduct. And you might be surprised to learn that as far as that ever so consequential night goes, that's really pretty much it as far as my part in that night.
Well, what do you make of it, Paige?
She's not a criminal. I mean, allegedly, these birds were going to be served to people in various grocery stores and sold as humane, sold as kindly raised and sustainable and so forth. And honestly, that's a bunch of lies. Because
well, let me just say this. Could be, wait a second, 1 second. She's also arguing that they were sick, so they could have been in the condemnation pile, but continue on.
I'm just saying that there is a discrepancy between what is being sold to the consumers as a particular product and what I'm seeing in that video. Okay? From what I understand, these birds are being sold. They're one of the top producers. So a lot of the folks that are out there buying this meat, this chicken meat, are under the guise. There's a big lie happening here. It looks to me, from what I can see, by watching those birds that came in on that truck. So personally, if I saw that, I would want to do something too. Much like in 2019 when I stopped a truck that had baby cows on it, and I just wanted to show, this is what your burger looks like. This is your veal. And the truck driver pulled over, and it's in your film called Countdown to Year Zero. Because I cared. I was crying. I was seeing these beautiful animals stuck in this hot truck. And that's just human nature to want to act towards kindness.
So we're very lucky. Thank you, Paige. We're lucky to have Stefan Seitz, who is with the defense team. The whole question is they've denied. The judge has said you can't use the necessity defense, which is basically if you know something really bad's going to happen, and they use an example of there's a kid drowning in a swimming pool, you can break the law and trespass onto their private property to rescue that child. The judge said that whole idea, the necessity defense, does not apply to animals. So now they're trying to use mistake of law, where Zoe said, well, I got a letter from a very famous legal scholar who said that what going in there is legal to rescue them, given that you've tried to report allegations of animal cruelty and you were ignored. So my question to you, Stefan, is how much of the conditions inside these facilities will be allowed into trial?
So the prosecution's tried hard to keep that evidence out. They've made arguments about it being too prejudicial. Also, remember, initially, Zoe was charged with theft and burglary, and those charges were dropped. And part of the reason, this is speculation, but part of the reason that those charges may have been dropped is because the quote unquote value of the property is something that the prosecution would have to show. In other words, the health of the birds would become an obvious legally relevant part of the trial. But all of those things have been dropped. The thing is, Zoe's still charged with conspiracy. And in California, conspiracy requires you to act knowing that you're doing something unlawful. You have to know that you're entering an unlawful agreement. And in other words, we're still able to introduce, hopefully, evidence showing that Zoe believed that what she was doing wasn't unlawful. In fact, that she believed what she was doing was right, that she had an attorney who had told her that what she was doing was lawful. That she had a good faith belief in that because she had seen this extensive evidence of animal cruelty, and that she had gone in, seen these things for herself, seen that the birds needed help, and then removed them as a result. In other words, the fact is that because she's charged with conspiracy, which requires her to know she's doing something unlawful, we can still hopefully present evidence of the conditions of the animals, because it goes to what Zoe believed she was doing at the time, that she believed she was acting lawfully because she believed she was acting out of necessity to rescue the animals.
Well, what's the chance, Stefan, of video, the kind of video we just played here, getting played inside court? That, I think, picture is 1,000 words. Picture's worth 1,000 words. You could talk all you want, but the video, if they can substantiate that it did indeed come from inside these facilities.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure on that, and so I don't want to speculate. I'm not sure the court has ruled on that explicitly. I'm pretty sure the court has said that Zoe can testify to things that she saw and knows, but you're totally right that there's obviously a big difference between Zoe or other witnesses saying, these are things I know, these are things I saw, and then actually putting that up on a TV and showing it to the jury. So I think, unfortunately, we still don't quite know the answer to that, or at least at this point, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, thank you for being honest. And, nobody knows with these cases. I've covered criminal cases for many years, and people yakety yak, blah, 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 and they don't know anything. I remember when I was covering the Casey Anthony trial, everybody thought it was a slam dunk. She's gonna go down, right? She was acquitted, right? It happens over and over and over again. You do not know. You cannot predict. I want to go out to Johnny Mora, who's been waiting patiently. Johnny, it's lunch hour there. You're going to have to unmute, fella. There you go. I got you. What's happening? You have to unmute. Unmute, sir. Okay, I'm going to come back to you later. Okay, we're gonna come back. Well, this is live television. You know what happens sometimes is, as I've said before, you get to see behind the curtain. In the old days, when I was first starting in TV, this would require a dozen crew members and millions of dollars of equipment, and we're doing it all on our computers and phones. So, well, let's give them one more try. All right, come here you go. Here we go. Can we hear you? Unmute. I cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. Okay, that's a problem. Ask what? Why don't we ask? I don't know why I can't hear you. We can't hear you at all. We cannot hear you. It's too bad. All right. I'm going to knock you. I'm going to remove you and then come back. Okay. I'm going to remove you and come back to the stage. All right. So,
Jane, real quick, Ellen does need to leave. So I wanted to,
bye, Ellen. Thank you. Oh. See you. Okay. So Renee, you've been listening to all this. Your thoughts?
Well, I just, gosh, if those records show this, the persistent disease of, in the condemnation of these birds, it could just really, really blow a hole in the whole issue, the whole case for Perdue. And, if the defense can prove the systemic neglect, then it strengthens the necessity defense, in my view.
The necessity defense is not allowed.
I know, but it would strengthen it I know it's not allowed, but if these condemnation records are entered, it could make a reason for it to be allowed. That's what I'm thinking.
No. Okay. Good point to raise. And let's go back to the law. Stefan, when something is disallowed, then how does it get reallowed, or is that not possible?
So it depends. There's two ways for things to be disallowed. It could be because there's not enough evidence for something. So sometimes you might not get a defense instruction because you can't actually show enough evidence for it to be plausible that defense applied. And sometimes a defense is disallowed as a matter of law, which is to say, no matter what facts you show, as a matter of law, it simply doesn't apply. And unfortunately, in this case, the judge disallowed the necessity defense as a matter of law. The judge said the necessity defense does not apply to harm to animals. So no matter how much harm to animals we show, no matter how good the condemnation records are, how gruesome the footage is, no matter what the evidence is of harm to animals, it's simply not the kind of harm that the necessity defense covers. So unfortunately, even if we get the best evidence in the world in front of the judge and in front of the jury, it would not change the ruling on the necessity defense because it's being denied as a matter of law.
All right. Well, that's a good answer.
Can I ask a question here, though? Even if rescuing these animals from imminent harm rather than committing theft could be proven?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the way it works is you have a number of things you have to show in order to get the necessity defense. And one of them is you have to show that you were averting a significant evil. And this court has held that harm to animals simply doesn't constitute a significant evil. No matter how bad the harm is, no matter how bad the emergency situation is, animals simply are not covered. It's worth pointing out that we are also counsel on a previous open rescue case, Wayne Shung's case in Sonoma County from 2 years ago, in which this was also a ruling that the court made denying the necessity defense because the court believed it didn't apply to animals. And we're now challenging that in the Court of Appeal. So this is very much still a live legal issue. Unfortunately, the court, I think in this case, went the other way and said that it doesn't apply to animals, but that's something that we're contesting in the Court of Appeal. So it's still very much something that I hope the courts will come around to.
But this seems to be a real weakness for Perdue, or they would not be fighting to keep them sealed and hidden. So this to me would seem like, the area of our strength to be able to go in there and go at their weakness. They don't want these revealed for some reason.
Yeah, and what's strange about this is, as I said, we already have these records, right? Because Raven Deerbrook, this investigator, went in, she photographed these records. So we already have these records, and those records we're trying to admit. And the court and the prosecution said, well, because these were obtained without permission, we're not sure that we're going to allow those to be admitted. And so we said, sure, that's fine. We'll just go ahead and ask Perdue then, can we please have the originals? If you think that maybe the records that we have from Raven aren't accurate or for whatever reason aren't reliable, then let's just give us the originals and we'll rely on those instead. And then they said, well, no, we don't want to give you those either. And so it's kind of one of those catch-22s where it seems like there's no way for us to win. And so
we've got somebody here saying, well, wouldn't the USDA have those records? What
Yes.
about getting the USDA records?
So we have sent subpoenas to the USDA. I'm not sure these records are necessarily USDA records. They're not records that are from like an inspector. We have some records from the USDA, but these are like internal condemnation records, is my understanding of them. And again, that's as someone who's seen the records, but isn't necessarily affiliated with USDA or Perdue. And so it'd be a little bit harder to be certain, but that's my sense of having seen these records.
Okay, we're gonna show a little bit of what's going on at the courthouse. A slow pan. It's pretty empty. It's lunch hour, but there was a protest there a little bit ago. That is about 55 miles north of San Francisco. You can see some DXC supporters on the ground having lunch and various people there. I'm going to do a little test and just see if we can hear. I'm going to undo the mic for a second, or maybe he can undo the mic. Undo your mic, sir. There you go.
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Is Elmira around or anybody you can talk
She
to?
is, absolutely. I think she's going to continue on Curtis's thoughts from earlier when he got interrupted with the audio. We have Elmira here now.
Let's go and talk to Elmira. Elmira, hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
We're good.
It's really hot and sunny.
What's the mood there? Tell us what, it
I
strikes
think
you
it's
as
good.
important.
For some people, listening to pretrial motions is really exciting. And for other people, they're probably excited for the witnesses to start, for there to be a jury and all of that. But we know this is just kind of the stuff that has to happen before that. And I've heard some people say, wow, it's like so interesting to see basically like all the stuff that the jury is never going to get a chance to see, all of the discussions that happen before the case really starts in a sense. So, but yeah, mood is good. We had over 100 people here yesterday, and everybody's excited and here to support Zoe. And I think she feels really supported, which is great.
What's your reaction as DXC's lead organizer to the quashing of the attempt to get the condemnation records introduced?
I mean, it sucks, but I don't think any of us are all that surprised. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't always understand all the legal arguments for that. But I did think it was really interesting. Chris is saying, like, we have the records, like we have them, but they're disputing whether they're authentic or not because they were stolen property. And the easy way to address this is for just them to give us the records. But I guess there are some legally complicated issues there. But I know, we've always had uphill battles with evidence in these trials. And I think all of us are just really happy that the conditions of the birds are going to be allowed to be discussed. That's like very, very critical. Zoe rescued those animals because they were sick and in need of help. And it is obviously very relevant that she was correct and they were sick and in need of help. So I think that was a really good ruling from yesterday. Obviously, we lost a lot of our other motions, but I don't think that was unexpected.
How much do you think the prosecution has learned from the previous cases? Like, for example, Alexandra Paul, who is a little bit away there, and we're hoping she's going to come over. She's just wrapping up lunch. There she is a few years ago in Merced County with Alicia Santurio taking chickens. She testified. She was acquitted. It was a huge slam dunk for the animal rescue, animal rights movement. But it seems that prosecutors have learned from this case. What have they learned, and how has it changed the strategy, Elmira?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I can't speak for them, but I do think that they learned a lot from the Smithfield case in Utah and then the Foster Farms case in Merced. And one of the things that we've seen in Sonoma County, specifically with Wayne's case and now Zoe's, is this very confusing conspiracy charge, which is a way of getting a felony in when there was no felony level conduct that was is alleged. And so like this felony conspiracy to commit misdemeanors, I think is one, a more serious charge, but also just confusing for the jury. So that was something they learned from Merced. Alexandra and Alicia essentially did the same thing that Zoe did. Obviously, there are some differences in their, like how it all went down, but they took chickens out of a slaughter truck. They were charged with 1 count of misdemeanor theft. Zoe was charged with a whole whack of stuff. At some point, there was a theft charge, and just earlier this year, they dropped that. I think they dropped that in Wayne's case, and they dropped it in Zoe's because they know that that is like, that's the rescue charge, and that allows us to talk a lot about the animals. And so they have learned a lot. I think they are like taking this case obviously extremely seriously, as we are, as they should be if they're going to try to send like somebody to jail for years. But it is like, it just, I feel like it's almost like a little bit silly, you know, here's somebody who helped 4 chickens and took them to the vet, and we've got like these expert level prosecutors on the case expending an enormous amount of our tax dollars to prosecute this, not to mention the fact that we're expecting this trial to last at least 4 weeks at this point, and that's just an enormous amount of the court's resources. And I think that should be very telling for a lot of people about what this case is really about, and it is certainly not about these 4 chickens.
Yeah. And what I have to wonder is, if I do respond to my jury calls, but do I want to serve on a jury? No, I'll be quite honest with you. It's not something. Maybe when I'm
I will 90, talk to you about that later.
Maybe when I'm 90. But I mean, with people who get sucked into as jurors in a trial that could last 4 weeks over 4 chickens, total value, if they were healthy, is purportedly $24. I mean, what do you think? I just want to quickly go, and please try to stay there for a second, Amira. What do you think, Paige? You know, you're a soccer mom in a way. You live in the burbs. You even do a show called Plant-Based in the Burbs. If you were called into jury duty for something like this, what would you say? Unmute.
Well, absolutely. I would say you're wasting our tax dollars. This is money spent on jurors, like you said, time for people away from their jobs of what they're doing in their lives, and on chickens that were allegedly sick. Also, that on a young child, a young adult who is ready to take on her next steps in life, for kindness, essentially. She saw allegedly animals that were sick in a car on a truck and was trying to do the right thing. And not only that, nobody should be charged or convicted of public information, because the other thing is, who's going to get this information out? Is it, if it isn't those that are willing to do the dirty work, so to speak? Because honestly, at this point, so much is hidden from the consumers. So not only are we spending money, tax dollars, on the jurors and this whole court experience, right? We are hiding the truth from the consumer of what they're purchasing and how they're spending their money. And that, to me, is what should be on the stand right now, is allowing for the truth to be told. As Paul McCartney says, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, if these situations were shown, if conditions were shown, people would make changes. But this information is not allowed out. There's block for information like people. We're not extremists. We are not extremists. I'm a soccer mom in the burbs. I'm the least extreme person out here, but I want this information, the correct, accurate information, to be able to be accessible to people so they can make a choice.
And let me just say this, you know, the United States has one culture, but look at Switzerland, which just required food labels must declare animal suffering. This happened in July. So anything that is done in terms of tail docking, beak cutting, tooth extraction without anesthesia, and all the other things that are done to animals in industrialized animal agriculture have to be on the labels in Switzerland. So I want to go back out to Amira as the lead organizer. I mean, what does this say about our culture? What does this say? I'm unmuting. What does this say about our culture, Elmira?
I mean, well, fun fact, I'm Swiss, half Swiss. So I think, I don't think it's as great as it sounds. Switzerland, like also with the other place I'm from, Canada, we like to think that we're a lot better than the United States, and that, sure, I think factory farming in the United States is horrendous, but it is in other countries too. And there's just maybe a little bit more of like a public facing, like quote unquote humane farming thing that people want to talk about there in Switzerland, and to the same extent Canada. But I think it's just one of the most interesting tensions in our society here is that I do truly believe people care deeply about animals. There are a small number of people who do not give a crap about them, but there are a lot of people who also don't give a crap about humans. But generally speaking, I think people really care about animals. They don't want to see them suffer. And so we've created a lot of ways around to avoid having to talk about this issue. And that's probably why they don't want photographs allowed on the label. And this is a little bit of a tangent. I don't know if Johnny has mentioned this or people have talked about it, but Petaluma Poultry is running a very aggressive public relations campaign right now that just started a few weeks ago. This has included them hiring a very prominent public relations firm in Sonoma County that runs all the kind of winning political races. They have 6 billboards up on the 101, which is the main highway here in Sonoma County. They are running digital ads on social media, targeting people. And they also have this mailer. Now, the mailer doesn't specifically mention Petaluma Poultry, but this is a extremely glossy 4-page mailer that you would get at the peak of an election season, except for it's coming out conveniently 2 weeks before Zoe's trial started, or a week and a half, that is asking all of Sonoma County residents to stand with local poultry farmers. I counted, it says the word extreme or extremists in there 6 times. And the photos on this brochure they're not just not from Sonoma County factory farms. They're just not even from the US. They're not from California. These are stock images from other countries that whoever designed this mailer just took from the internet. And this is allowed to be shown to people. And I know from experience that the difficulties that we have to go through in order to put a real photo from a factory farm on a billboard is not the same as they can just essentially lie to people. Now, they aren't overtly saying this is this farm, but when you have a quote from Mike Weber, which I think we all remember from Wayne's trial, above a picture of a child carrying an egg basket, you kind of put 2 and 2 together. And I think people are thinking, oh, that's what these farms look like. And that's totally not true. And the reason they're lying is because if they show people the truth, people would be sad because they care about animals. So, I think it's just really interesting that Perdue was up in arms trying to gag Zoe, didn't want her to talk about this case. They lost that, and then they were we will spend, my estimate is probably at least $250,000, $300,000 minimum on this advertising campaign that they're running so far. And maybe there's more coming. We just don't know what it is yet.
And we always say we invite the companies and agencies connected to this on any time. We would love to dialogue with you. Periodically, we put the statements of the companies up. So we are completely transparent in the sense that we're reporting on this story, but we invite people to do their own research. And you can either go to, you can go to both. You can go and there's the corporate.perduefarms.com. That has all the information on what Perdue says their standards are. They're saying they have high animal welfare standards. And then you can also go to Perdue-abuse.com, which is the Direct Action Everywhere website with their 8-page report outlining what they say is going on. So I urge everybody, do your homework and, dig in, because there's a lot of information out there. We can certainly not present all of it. And we invite these companies on anytime to dialogue. So my big question is, and I think, again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Elmira, while we have you, the last question I want to ask you today, and I really appreciate, you're the lead organizer for DXC, so I know you're very busy, but I want to know, what is your prediction? Are we going to get any video from inside the facility on, or is the video of Zoe doing the thing for which she is charged, which I will play right now, is that going to be on?
I mean, please, Stefan, if you like, my understanding is like absolutely yes. I mean, both sides are going to be relying on this video heavily. Actually, the judge indicated that today because there was some like discussion about essentially like our side trying to restrict footage being played with commentary, in the sense of like not their witnesses talking over the video and being like, this is what's happening, because that's inference, and our side being like, just show the video to the jury, and then, you know, they are able to observe just as much as any other witness who wasn't there. And that was like a little bit of a back and forth, but like the judge was like, ultimately, I think both sides are going to be relying on this video very heavily, right? And like everybody's like, yes. So I think this video is absolutely going to be shown. I don't know, and I doubt that any video of like, you know, a hidden camera had been placed. I'm not saying that was placed by Zoe, but like a hidden camera had been placed inside the slaughterhouse. I doubt that that video is going to come in showing, you know, the slaughter line. And obviously yesterday they ruled, unfortunately, that video evidence that was obtained just 2 months before this rescue from one of Petaluma Poultry's factory farms is not going to be allowed in. But I'm 99.9% certain that the jury will be seeing this video probably multiple times.
Okay, and so the jury's gonna see this video of Zoe doing the thing for which she is charged, but the other videos, some of which we've been showing you here, like for example, this video, which
oh yeah, that is definitely
this is
that
a
is not
DXC video. Yeah. So this is a video that was provided to the media by DXC. And DXC says that this is video from inside a Petaluma poultry facility showing animals struggling. Stefan, as an attorney with the defense team, is there going to be an effort to try to get any of this kind of video before the jury?
So I think the videos we're seeing now from the factory farms that I understand supply the slaughterhouse, it's my understanding that yesterday the court essentially excluded those and said that those aren't relevant. And as a result, we won't be able to show these videos, unfortunately.
Okay, so you're seeing them here, but the jury won't see them. So, I mean, that's the problem in terms of having a jury come up with a conclusion. If they don't get the whole story, why can't it come in under, this is why Zoe did this? This is why Zoe did this, because she's seen these videos and she was inspired by these videos and she's done investigation. She was there when some of these videos were recorded, and this is her motivation. I don't understand why that can't be included, Stefan.
So, I mean, frankly, I agree with you. I think all of these videos are absolutely probative of Zoe's intent. And that's the argument that Chris Caraway, her attorney, was making yesterday in court. The prosecution's response is that they're irrelevant, that the fact that this was happening, months before the actual day of the rescue, and also these were happening at facilities that aren't the slaughterhouse where the rescue happened, but other facilities that may supply the slaughterhouse. They were essentially saying, as a result, it's not relevant. And unfortunately, the court sided with them. But I mean, I agree with you. I think intuitively, these are the things that absolutely influenced Zoe's intent. That's why she conducted the rescue, because she'd seen this footage, either because she was there herself or saw footage or talked to people. So she's aware of these things. And so I think, I personally still think that the court got that wrong. But that's the sort of the rules that we have to abide by now. And so we won't be able to show that video, but I do think that Zoe's still able to testify about what she believed and why she acted.
Well, guys, we have been on for an hour, so I want to thank everybody for participating in this. Unchained TV is committed to covering this trial from beginning to end, and I'm here in our Los Angeles studios. We've got Renee in Texas. We have other people, Ellen in Pennsylvania. I don't know where you are, Stefan. You're what part of the country?
I'm in Denver, at the University of Denver.
So we have people from all over the United States participating in this, bringing this information to you at home so that you can stay involved. And I urge you to share it out. I urge you to let people know. We're going to be back on Thursday at noon because there's no trial on Wednesday. I'm just going to ask a quick prediction, Elmira. Do you think we're going to get a jury seated by the end of the week? Yes.
I am wholly unqualified to make that prediction, but probably not. I don't know. I guess I don't know how much they're going to screen out with this questionnaire. I think finding an impartial jury in Sonoma County is going to be a challenge. And I'm curious to know how many juror summons they sent out. Probably a lot more than they would for a typical case, but that's speculative, as they would say in court. I don't actually know.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up our coverage. I want to thank everybody for participating. And, what's really great is that Zoe was not gagged because that has happened in other cases where the defendant can't even speak. So on the way out, let's just play Zoe's very impassioned speech to those gathered as she walked into court yesterday for day 1. Today's day 2. This Thursday is day 3. Join us at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern as we continue our coverage here on Unchained TV.
As I stand here today, I do not know what lies ahead. I'm just wrapping up as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley, and in many ways my life is just beginning. But my future feels incredibly uncertain. In a few weeks, I might be a convicted felon. I might be on house arrest. I might be in jail. I might be in jail being denied medical care that I need to survive, which is now even more concerning, as in the last couple of months, my stomach has become partially paralyzed, which is why I now have a feeding tube that runs from my nose into my small intestine. I do not know what lies ahead. But there is one thing that I do know for certain, and that is that for billions of animals, their futures are set in stone long before they are ever born. They are sentenced to die before they even breathe their first breaths. So what I am facing might be scary, but the consequences of our inaction are much, much scarier. For the animals, the cost of allowing the world to continue as it is simply far too great. I believe that the future of the animal rights movement depends on how we handle moments like this. And we must not hide. We must not cower in fear. We all have a part to play, and we must show Sonoma County law enforcement, Perdue, and the world that we will not be silenced. We will continue to take action for Poppy, Ivy, Aster, and Azalea, and every animal whose cries for help have gone unanswered.